Why aren't you getting booked on a top 100 podcast or a global top 1% of podcast? I'm going to give you all the reasons in this episode so you can flip the script and start getting booked on the top 1% of podcasts. Welcome to the Communication Queens podcast for the visionary leaders, speakers, service providers, and podcasters who are looking to stand out sharing their story. I'm your host, Kimberly Spencer, former screenwriter turned master communications coach. On this podcast, I'll be coaching you on how to share your own transformation story so that you increase your visibility, influence, and income on podcast interviews. Let's get your voice heard. Hello and welcome back to the Communication Queen podcast. I am your host, Kimberly Spencer, founder of the Communication Queens agency, where we help visionaries, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and leaders get booked on the top 5% of podcasts, building their brand awareness and their bottom line. And a question that I have seen from a lot of people is they want to get on the top 100 podcasts. They want to be on the top 1%. They want to get booked on all these big podcasts. They want to be on Glennon, Doyle, and Lewis Howes, and Brendan Burchard, and Young and Profiting, and all of these major podcasts. The problem is one, they are not an expert in what it is that they do. Now, if you're like, Kim, but you're telling us to discover a multi-million-dollar voice and be an expert and be an authority and really claim our power and ownership. There's a difference between being an expert and being an expert. And you would know if you listen to something like the Tim Ferris podcast or the Andrew Huberman podcast, and you hear the quality of the interviews of how well-researched and deeply knowledgeable these people are who are going on to the tippity top of podcasts. So I'm going to break it down. If you are teaching like basic bitch email marketing, and I'm going to put this real bluntly, then if you're like, oh, you need to build your funnel and then build your list and then here's your list, then that's not a level of mastery. If you have gone in and, like, for example, I heard Nicholas Kuzmich, who is a Facebook ads genius, and he went in and as he was talking, he did like Tony Robbins' ads. And he was talking about all the little granular, tiny little details and tweaks and things that you could make to differentiate, to stand out your Facebook ad. Game changer difference to like, you need to build a funnel. You need to have an email list. Have a freebie. Those basic bitch topics and tactics will never get you booked on a top 1% podcast. Basically, if you can Google search bar it, and you can Google search a lot of things. If you can Google search it in a hot second and it's like, oh, here's your 5 tips that you need to know on how to build your business with an email list or with a Facebook ad, that's not going to be inspiring to a top 1% of podcasts. They find the people who are just masterful. So that is number one. And if you're like, but how do I claim that? How do I get that? You practice. You have to practice. I have 9 years of coaching mindsets for conscious leaders. Like, I have built the subconscious structures for multiple businesses as far as looking at how a leader thinks about their business and how they're guiding it. I am a master NLP coach. I get at least 2 certifications per year in different modalities on and around the subconscious mind, attachment theory, somatic breath work, all of those coaching tools to support my clients. I know what I'm talking about when I go on a podcast and talk mindset. I'm not talking about like, let's go for your goals and here's your accountability and here, just repeat your affirmations 30 times. No, I get real deep and granular. I get into neuroscience. I get into a deep study so that I know that when I go on a podcast to talk about mindset work for my Crown Yourself coaching business, I have 9 years of practice, case studies, clients under my belt. So you have to have and lead with that embodied influence. You have to lead with that level of mastery. And mastery, it stands out in a society of scrolling casualness where people copy everyone else's trends and people can download anything from Google. Demonstrating that you are a master is essential for getting booked on those top podcasts. If you are the master of email marketing and you are like the queen of this, I had M. Shannon Hernandez on my podcast for Crown Yourself, and she is the organic marketing queen. She is doing nearly $1 million, no paid ads, all organic marketing, and mostly from her email list. Like, that is powerful. That demonstrates a level of authority and expertise, and she has the numbers, i.e. revenue, to back it up. And I will leave a link to that interview because it's phenomenal. I highly recommend it. Secondly, most people are not interesting enough. A lot of people pitch the same things, and they have a heart and a story, and they're like, oh, I want to get this story out, and I have a story, and I want to share my story. And a lot of times their story and sharing it is really of service to more them, even if they don't want to admit it. And I know that may be hard to hear, than really being of service. And to be honest, if you were to look at their life, it's a pretty average life. And I say this with all the love in the world. I say this just with so much compassion. A lot of people have led a very average life. I mean, just look at your Netflix history. How much Netflix are you watching? How much time are you spending scrolling on social media? And if it's upwards of 6 hours in total, because the average American watches 3 hours of TV a day, if it's 6 hours or above, you're average. And I don't mean that negatively. I just mean that with love. And it's just statistics. So that doesn't mean that you can't do anything about being average. You can always change. One of my favorite quotes, and I read this in a book called Rattled Awake, the Podcaster's Edition, that my very dear friend and fellow podcaster, and she helps out in Communication Queen. She's one of our amazing Queen team members, Kat Polsinelli. She was in this book, and this quote, I'm going to paraphrase it. I forget who it was by. It was basically like, you are not beholden to being who you were 5 minutes ago. So if you were average 5 minutes ago and like 3 hours of TV was your norm, and 6 hours on social media was your norm, or 5 hours, or however many crazy amount of hours, if you actually look at how much screen time via your data, it's crazy. If you look at that and you're like, oh my gosh, I am average, then you can always change. You can always make a new decision. You can always do something radically different. So, for example, when my team pitches me, the stories that capture their attention are like, wait, you got stuck in Australia in the middle of a pandemic, and you had a baby over there, free birthed him during lockdown, and you had a TED Talk over in Australia, and you chose to stay over there, and you were stuck there for 2 years, and your father died while you were over there. Like, it is interesting to people, and you grew your business 300%. And in 2021, when you had only one good quarter because you lost family members in 3 of them, or in 2 of them, and then had a baby for 1 of them, you still grew your business 150% with a 35% profit margin? What? Like, that is very different and very interesting, rather than like, I just want to inspire people. Yeah, that's great. Huzzah, me too. But is your life actually inspiring? Like, does your life demonstrate the principle of what inspiration is, which is living in spirit, in a spirit of courage, love, joy, excitement, adventure, possibility? Is your life a demonstration of something that actually is inspiring? So your stories, your life has to have a little bit of risk. There has to be moments of courage, moments of courageous choice. If there is nothing to inspire, then it's not going to inspire others to want to book you on a top podcast. Because courage, to be in courage, like, let's talk energetics of emotions for a hot second, which is not normally what we do here. It's more what we do on the Crown Yourself podcast, but let's just talk about it for just a minute. The energy of courage, it actually resonates at a vibrational level of 200 hertz. So it is the tipping point from all of the negative lower states of emotion of shame, guilt, fear, anger, pride, grief, into acceptance, love, joy, abundance. And the percentage, but being at that tipping point level, it literally requires you to be in spirit, trusting, taking bold action, having faith in whatever the outcome is, and you just did what you did, and it's gonna turn out. Like, to be living in courage, that is what is attractive to top 100 podcasters. So I'll give you an example of my very dear friend, Lucy Lampe, who has been on some amazing top 100 podcasts. She's a sex and relationship coach, and she is phenomenal. And I have watched her blossom. We met on a movie that we both were in, or it was like a movie, it was a short film or something, like 10 years ago. And over the past few years, I watched her blossom from having the Sexy Mama movement, which was something that an event that she used to hold that I spoke at, to then really deeply embodying a level of sexuality in her, in how she presents herself on social media and how she shares, in really embodying who it was that she was becoming. And hot damn, she exploded. Like, she went to over 100K in followers and has gotten booked on some of the biggest podcasts and spirituality because she deeply ties in spirituality to sexuality. And that was her resonating message that she not only talks about, but she embodies it. It's the breath of every single post that she has. She's masterful at it. And it's a devotion that she has to her craft and to her life and to living in service to love. And that is attractive to people to share about it. So I highly, highly recommend do something interesting with your life. It is, you can literally, this year, my husband and I gave him for Christmas, we're getting our motorcycle license. Like, I was like, let's do something interesting this year. So we flew off to Disney World and got to do Disney World. And well, that's not super interesting. Like, being able to do that and then juggling a business and babies and living on a farm. Like, I can't tell you how many podcasts I've been on that are like, wait, what? You have to go check on your donkey? Like, I was on this one podcast and I saw my son. He's 2, and we don't let him near the donkey because the donkey could bite his hand. And like, the donkey's also quite feisty and like killed the other donkey because of he's just kind of a dick. But they're like, wait, what? You have to check. Because I saw my son, like, from my office, I can see my son running out the front door to go say hi to the donkey and the goats. Like, he's totally fine saying hi to the goats, but the donkey could actually like bite his fingers. And I was like, whoa, hold on, I got to check on my donkey. And the podcaster was like, wait, what? And I said, yeah, can we just pause for a second? I just want to corral my son back inside, make sure someone's watching him. And Grandma was there. It was totally fine. I just had to check, mom things. But they're like, wait, I'm sorry, you just said donkey. Like, and I said, yeah, I have 2 donkeys, 3 goats, 9 chickens, and a one-eyed cat named Princess. And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, I live on a small farm. So it makes life interesting. It's different. It's something that sets someone apart because they see me and they're like, oh, big city girl, like sparkles, glam, luxury. And they're like, wait, you live on a farm? It's a paradigm shift. And those paradigm shifts are gold for podcasts and for getting booked on podcasts. Another reason is most top podcasts, they get real fast. They are authentic, courageous, vulnerable. They share personal stories, struggles, and they also don't shy away from their successes either. So Dr. Brene Brown, she says that authenticity is a collection of choices that we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, the choir to let our true selves be seen. I have heard from so many podcasters that they have chucked interviews because the person just highlighted their highlight reel, their social media highlight reel. Nothing went wrong in their life. Everything is just grand and glorious and ta-da. No, a podcast interview is intimate. It's where you get to highlight your life as the metaphor for what it is that you preach, for the service, for you are the embodiment of the values, of the principles, of the beliefs that you hold. And you show up on that level. That is how you start attracting the attention of top 100 podcasts, because they start seeing you in a whole different light. And there's a cohesive brand about you, and there is a cohesiveness to what it is that you preach. So also, this is another reason, is if you have multiple businesses. Now, I have 2. So I have 2. I'm also a mom of 2, and I have a small farm. So technically I have 4. Small farm, real estate investing, which I don't really talk about. I don't go on investing podcasts. I don't feel the need. And communication and crown yourself. So I talk a lot about mindset. I talk about communication. I talk about storytelling between both the stories that we tell ourselves in our head and the stories that we put out into the world. Influence, strategy, and how to influence your kids to eat broccoli. That's a big one because I think everything affects everything. So I talk a lot about communication, mindset. That's mainly it. But if you are, say, for example, you don't have that cohesiveness in your business, and on one day you are talking about aromatherapy and your essential oils, that you are part of a giant direct marketing business, and then you talk about being a children's book author, and then you talk about being a bookkeeper, and then you talk about being a realtor on the other, if you have so many different directions, people won't know how to box you in. And as much as I'm all about breaking down the box and making your own mold, people do put people into boxes, and that's just how we work. And so they want to know how you can help them. And if they're like, I think she's a realtor, but has essential oil, I'm not sure. If they don't know how to categorize you or how you actually would serve their audience, unless you're talking about how to be a successful multi-passion entrepreneur and you're crushing it at six figures in all of those arenas, then choose one lane and niche into it. Even if that one lane is a very chunked up one lane, like you just talk about marketing. If you do all the things in marketing and you don't want to niche down into just doing logos or just doing brand design or just doing email marketing, and you do all things marketing, if that one thing that you do is talk about marketing, then talk about marketing. Talk about how you market yourself as a person, how you market yourself as a brand, how you market a business, and the differences between the two, how you embody that message of marketing, how you're the walking billboard for what it is that you say that you do, and share that. That is your message. It doesn't have to be this like microscopic niche, but you do have to have some overarching through line through all of the things that you do. So for example, when people see my history and they're like, wait, she's been an entrepreneur since she was 19. She's an award-winning screenwriter, 6-time WeGo Health Activist nominee, Miss Congeniality. She had a Pilates instructing business. She's been featured in major magazines and in Times Square billboard for her e-commerce product. And she's been coaching for the past 9 years and has a podcast guesting agency. Like, it can seem a little incontinuous. However, when I say the through line is, I transform people's stories about what's possible for themselves and then let them light the way of possibility with their own story. Well, that just connects all the dots. I did that in every single one of my businesses. I share how I did that in every single one of my businesses. I transform people's stories about their body, about what was possible for their furniture, because we sold a back-stretching chair, about the stories. I showed what was possible for their lives and stories in the form of the films that I wrote. So all of those are stories of possibility. That's what I teach. That's what my TED Talk was on, becoming a warrior for possibility. There has to be a through line, and Top 100 Podcasts will want to see that there is a through line of continuity of what it is that you deeply embody and share and speak about and connect with, and then showcasing that. So if this episode served, I know this is a little longer than our normal quickies, but real quick to recap, how you shift it is you become a master, you become an expert, dive deeper, practice more. Get deeper into the research into your field. Get curious. Get wildly curious. 2, live an interesting life. Like, go out there and do something more than just your business. Your business is not your hobby. Go find one. Like, I don't care what your hobby is. Go find a hobby. Go do something interesting with your life. Take a trip. Do something weird. And then number 3, be authentic, real, and vulnerable. Don't just share the highlight reel on podcasts. Don't just share about the successes. Share the lows. Like, when we pitch our clients, we share the lows. Like, one of our clients, Megan Camille, phenomenal 6-7-figure business owner. She had built 4 businesses, 2 that were 6, 2 that were 7-figure businesses, and she was sex trafficked and prostituted when she was 19 years old. Like, what? Like, that is a story. And she shares about that. Same with one of our other clients, Stuart Morris, who shares about being neurodivergent and diagnosed late in life with autism and dyslexia. And yet he's built multiple successful businesses, one of which is on the New York Stock Exchange for $5 billion. Like, crazy amount of successes, but you have to share the darkness. Another one of our clients, Rich Maglianis, he is an executive producer for Dora the Explorer, a multi-billion-dollar franchise, and he started out on government food stamps growing up as one of 5 brothers. And he was able to grow through that into a level of working in animation that is just unparalleled. So all of these stories, you have to be willing to show and share the dark sides. And if that dark side stuff is not yet healed, podcasts are not the place for you. Therapy is. So I highly recommend having a great therapist that can help you so that you can share the dark sides, because there are people who are going to be going through listening to your podcast. And if you share all the good, they're going to be like, yeah, but she has it so good. She doesn't understand me. There's no connection. So people need to hear that there's a reason why, as Melody Hendricks, who is on this podcast, I believe episode 7, I'll link to that episode below. When she shared her story, she realized you don't start the story on episode 8 of the 10-part series, because then you don't have the whole beginning. You don't have the backstory. You have to start the story at the beginning to bring people along the journey and all the ups and downs entail. So I encourage you to go out there, shift your story, do something interesting with your life, make a massive impact, take a stand for something, get curious, get even more well-researched, in depth with what it is that you do, and then go out there and get booked on those top 5% of podcasts. And if you want help with that, then definitely click the link down below to get your 100K profit from guest podcasting plan with us. You will get a list of 50 aligned podcasts that are a fit for your specific strategy. This is not some like cookie cutter list. This is tailored to you that you can start reaching out to right away. Or if you want to choose to work together, we will start reaching out right away within 24 hours of becoming a client. So the link is down below if you want to join. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. As always, stand out and be heard. Thank you so much for listening. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends. For more tips on guest podcasting, storytelling, and communication strategies, follow us on social media at Communication Queens Agency and visit us at communicationqueens.com. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. And in the meantime, remember, your story has the power to save one life. Let your story and your voice be heard.